Let's go to Kano State, where some residents believe President Buhari's speech on extending the validity of the old 200 Naira notes should have come earlier. But they say it's better late than never.
Well, others are calling on the president to obey the Supreme Court ruling and allow for the usage of all the old notes.
To some extent, it's a leverage to the current unexpected frightening situations. People will now have some relief to some extent, with the 200 all notes in circulation. But I wonder, where did the president, got his decision to ban the 1,500? Because don't forget, there is a Supreme Court declaration.
He has now read to rest all the doubts and speculations about the new monetary policy introduced by his administration days to the general elections, because this is what is supposed to be done. The media handlers of Mr. President will have advised him to address the nation, because his address is long overdue, because his silence is another thing. People will suspect something about the monetary policy, but today the Mr. President has said it all. He has now cleared doubt.
It's one that's been long overdue. He ought to have, you see, many Nigerians before now have been like, who is ruling this country? We barely hear him talk to us, but he's doing this in a period whereby he's about leaving the office. Perhaps I would say he wants to leave, he's trying to make up for his doings that are not actually so good. It's well of him to speak to us, but then I think he might have taken a step that's not too fitting. He should allow the rule of law. I believe he has them advisors. He should allow them to give him good counsel on.
Let's bring in former Finance Minister Dr. Kalu I, who joins us from Nigeria's economic capital, Lagos. Well, good to see you, and thanks for your time. And I'm quite sure you've been following developments concerning the Naira swap and redesigning. First of all, you served in the military government back in the day, where Nigeria also saw a change in currency. Take us through some of those things you did while in office that perhaps should have helped us at the moment.
Well, thank you very much. I believe that's Suleiman. And Gosi, thank you for having me on this program. The time was pretty tight. I wouldn't say I was following all the various brickbats going on, but of course every Nigerian is very concerned. I'm sure from the president to the smallest farmer in the village, we wish that this had gone on a little more smoothly than we have seen it. Money is like bloodstream in the body. You can't play around with money. This level of transaction is something that you need, and it's not something that you allow to have so much uncertainty. So if we look at it from that standpoint, everybody must wish that this had gone on a lot more smoothly. Of course, so many countries undertake this. In fact, it is quite routine. I can't tell you the average time frame, but it's definitely usually beyond 6 months or 9 months, and some take over a year to implement. Of course, ours has been a partial change, a partial redesigning. It's not like redesigning all the denominations, and yet look at all the crises that has been attendant on this exercise. So I listened to the president's speech. I have a lot of sympathy for the president. As a military man, he's not a finance person. So obviously the burden goes to the central bank, that I think should have really done a much better job than they have done. You see, the issue should not be all these extensions. The issue is how much empirical work went into determining just what needed to be done, how long it would take to do it in a way that Nigerians might not even notice what was happening. But the picture we have seen over the last few weeks actually leaves a lot to be desired. It is very dreadful. Some of the psychological, physical quite traumatic experiences of Nigerians. And I believe that this must be what has spurred the president to reconsider some of these things. Well, the question is, when you want to alter these things, how much time frame will be involved? And actually, another point that just should occur to us is that nobody is coming out of this shining. To think that the only way you can stop fight corruption or vote buying and other illegal acts is by tampering with the currency. That doesn't speak too well of Nigerians, whether as politicians or as voters, that you have to make sure that they are not induced by money to vote one way or the other, that the politicians have to store money in order to buy votes, and that we have sort of these ambush tactics for something that should really be quite seamless,
Dr. Kalu,
and routine.
Okay, let me quickly jump in here quickly.
Yes,
you said something about empirical, ways of actually ensuring that this is not done, which is very, very key and very important, especially when you have experts working at Nigeria's Apex Bank. What exactly do you have in mind for Nigeria or the Apex Bank if you had the chance to say this should have been a workable solution or experiment for us in this cash swap redesigning policy?
Well, a lot of this has already gone into the media. Of course, I don't think they had too much problem deciding which denominations to change. But that is a good question. What denominations do you want to change? Whether in terms of spoilage, or in terms of counterfeiting rates, or in terms of the sheer numbers and the value of the currencies. So those quantitative decisions are subject to thorough empirical study. So we are talking about numbers. We are not talking in qualitative propositions. We are speaking in terms of numbers. How much currency did you have to print? How much time will it take you to print it? How much time is it going to take you, given the number of denominations that you have to redistribute? Remember, we are not just talking about the cities. We are talking about towns and villages, hamlets, agricultural outlets here and there. It's a very prodigious logistical program, which has to be taken on board. And the time frame for doing this is really the important thing, which is all going to be based on the good judgment of all the experts involved within the central bank, in the mint, in terms of the time frame for printing, or if we were importing any, in terms of the paper, whether everything will be available, before we even get to setting the dates, the deadlines. So we cannot be quoting the CBN Act to permit you to extend for 10 days or 1 week. That's really beside the point. The major duration is that time frame which is subject to the empirical work by the experts. We need so much time. We need 3 months, we need 6 months, we need 1 year. And all these issues, all these logistical issues will be put clearly into focus to make sure that you can estimate the time it will take you, and even give yourself maybe 15% or 20% extra time, so that we don't have to go through this thing about moving time frame. It's very, very untidy, and I'm sure Mr. President has tried, but this is not really what we expect. This is not what he expected to be doing, to be called upon to adjust the time and so on. And also the impression he gives about our political class. And the question then is this kind of exercise just what other politicians require? We have a whole law enforcement agency, intelligence, police, name it. This will be construed as more direct, because we are not talking about large numbers, hopefully. There's no way we'll be talking about large numbers involved in this. So to be targeting a small number and create a situation in which we create, massive disruptions in the supply chain for vegetables and crops and staples and imports and exports. This affects everything: transport services, communication services, and all kinds of things. Yes.
Yes, indeed, Dr. Idika Kalu. Now, one of the reasons given by the central bank and further underscored by President Buhari is that there's a need to restore the ability of the Central Bank of Nigeria, to keep firm control over money in circulation. How much of a sound argument is that?
Well, as I said, no aspect of this thing is flattering to any segment. The central bank itself has to look at its internal policies. The internal policies are also implemented by its member banks. You have incentives. We talk about the kinds of incentives to give to people to save in the banking sector. This is standard for every country. This is standard for every financial system. So for us to now say that we are just sitting and we realize that 85% of the money supply was outside of the monetary system and therefore was not within the purview of effect of monetary policy. This is the fault of the system itself. I know that because of the level of education, the level of general competence in terms of understanding banking practices and all the new gadgets for mobilizing, for storing and mobilizing your money, we need to do extra work. So it's not as if the system itself is blameless, but I think they are honest to say that, well, there's so much outside of the system. There again, this is an empirical question. How much is outside the system? How much time frame, given the instrumentalities at your disposal, will you need to mobilize this gradually? The public should not be disturbed by it. It's people who have savings, who have stored money, who can see how much they'll be losing if they don't put money into the system. It's their money, and there's an aspect of human rights we must take into consideration. Nigerians are not just robots to be told, put your money here or put your money there. There are ways of inducing people to do that in a seamless fashion over, a good time frame, so that we avoid this sort of military-style dictation, which we seem to be now getting. And you can't blame Mr. President. We're running out of time. The elections are here. And not just the import of this for elections, but also the whole society be moving up and down, as people have said. Yes, people need cash to travel. They need cash to invest in farming. The farming season is starting. So there are lots of reasons beyond politics for making sure that we had a sense of stability at this point in time, going into the rainy season.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kalu Idika Kalu, former finance minister in Nigeria. Thank you very much for joining us.